greatest co-host in the world, Watsuke99. Get ready to rumble!
The tag team champions of the world.
My brotherly crevat
has the best intro I have ever received.
The world. The Buffalo Jets fan.
Yo.
George Fant is a barely above replacement level, pretty good left tackle.
How can you say
Compare
that when
that
he
to
was
an-
top 3 in sack percentage last year for left tackles?
And I think when in doubt, until you have better reason, go with the optimistic view. And our defensive line is going to be giving a lot of people some trouble.
But yeah, it's got to be. I'm with you. I don't like the Nathan's fries when they're like floppy. It's got to be like done really well. You know, it's very hard to teach 6'3" and 4.3 speed. That's very rare. The talent's there. He's just got to put it together mentally.
Right.
To get
You're a
on
cheater.
you, I'm a cheater.
Well, hello and happy Sunday to everybody's here so soon, so early in the evening. If you want to call it early, it's early for me in the evening. I don't know about for you. I had to eat a super early dinner because of this show. I was going to eat one cheeseburger before the show that I barbecued and the other after. I ended up eating both because I was still hungry. So now I have nothing to eat later. What could you do? Anyway, I want to say hello to Dakota. He was the first one here. He loves being the first one here. Twisted in the house. What's going on? Can't say I didn't give you lots of warning about this show. I'm right here, Harlan. What's going on, Anthony? It's good to see Randy, New York Jets fan 4. You're the man. Snowball's here. Some guys here. Dano's here. Love you guys for being here. Love you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being ready to go. Look, last night I came on. I reacted to the draft. I gave you everybody's reacting to the draft. But now we have to start doing some research, right? We need to start learning more about our players. Like, who are these guys? Like, what? Because some of them, we didn't know their names, a lot of us. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know some of the names. Like, and I thought this year I was so prepared. Oh, I'm going to know the names. And there were names as we were picking that I could not believe were still on the board and that we weren't picking. It was absolutely crazy to me. But trust in JD, and we're going to learn more about these players. And we're not going to learn more about these players because I know more about these players. No. We are going to learn more about these players because this guy knows a little bit more about these players. He is the fact-finding, the player analyzing, the sweet talking, the dad of the year. Take his kids to Little League. He's not going to miss that for any YouTube content. He's a dad first, and he's a friend first. He's the greatest analytical man in the world. Tom Steve.
Hey, Jeremy,
What
my
is up,
guy. How are you?
brother?
How are you, Chad? How's everyone doing tonight? Hopefully well, man. It's post-draft kind of hangover has set in, and hopefully everything is everyone's in a better spot than they were Thursday around 10 o'clock, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Look, it's so weird because I thought people were going to be so angry. There were people who were very happy with the draft. There were people who were very upset with the draft. I am going to say, and I think I said it yesterday, me, it's more shock. I'm just surprised. Not about every pick, but a lot of the picks were just very surprising to me. Clearly, I mean, I'll never get fooled again. One thing I know is that Joe Douglas is not a positional need drafter. Maybe near the end of a draft he will, but when he's in those early rounds, he really goes for the best players, and he's taking quality. And it doesn't mean he's totally neglecting positional need, but I mean, he really clearly is valuing his board and the quality he sees in these guys.
Yeah.
He's not being led by the positional need.
Well,
you know what I mean?
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I agree, and I think, like, to an extent, that's how you have to kind of formulate or construct a team, because if you reach for positional needs, that's kind of a recipe for disaster. That's a way to end up real quick on the unemployment line. Now, it goes both ways. You can't always just take best player available at all times. I think there has to be kind of, that happy median or that combination. So, it's crazy. Like, I think we all have to realize that this draft class as a whole is was kind of an anomaly, because it wasn't the strongest class. I mean, that's just what it was. Especially at the top, it wasn't very strong. So the best player available at positions of need might just not have been there. So I think that you kind of got to really kick and shift and take the alternate route, especially when the board lines up as it did. I mean, on the average, there wasn't more teams didn't have many more than 15 first round grades on these guys.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm going to give these guys something. There's a little bit of a discussion about milk thumbs is green beans thing, because somebody was saying hit those milk thumbs, and they said we got to give me my own thing. So, guys, this is my thing, okay? Guys, give me that give me that like I just ate a nearly good slice of pizza. How about those Okay, that'll be my thing. Give me those guys.
Fair enough.
I love the fact that they're actually talking about it. And I love these guys. They're talking about ways for me to ask for them to hit the like button. These guys are the best.
Gotcha.
These guys are the best. I love them.
Yeah, man. So yeah, you said something, Jeremy, and
yeah,
I don't know. Like, I think it's a good talking point. You said that he took best player available and didn't really address needs. But if you think about it, he drafted, and it doesn't matter what order. We'll talk about that as we talk about this prospects.
What I really meant was the order, because I felt like the people seem to think you have to address your needs in the early rounds, and JD doesn't particularly behave that way. Like, he has a lot of belief in his later picks, is what I guess I need to say.
Yeah, I mean, he we went into this draft saying, okay, all the fans and for how many months we talked about this, we said, all right, we got to come out of here. We need a tackle. We need a center. We need linebackers. I for one, and I'm not the only one who said that I thought edge was a really sneaky need for us. Running back was talked a lot. Safety was talked a lot. And I think he touched every single aspect of that. If you think about it, the only position which I thought was interesting, and as we get into the picks, we can talk about it a little more. The only position that wasn't addressed that I thought maybe there might be a dart thrown somewhere along the line, whether it was earlier or later, was the wide receiver position. But you only have so many picks, and he did wheel and deal a little bit towards the end of the draft, and wide receiver just didn't come. But he then addresses it with 4 wide receivers in the undrafted free agent period. He brings in some volume and some guys and some depth there. So I think he touched every aspect of the positions that we thought, maybe not in the order that we would like. And this is something I've been going back and forth with people on Twitter all day long. We have to remember that this is, the Jets scouting department and their front office, this is their job, right? They spend a full calendar year getting this stuff together, So their board might look different than yours, Jeremy. And yours might look different than mine, and mine might look different than Twisted, and Twisted might look different than Trevor Sycamores.
You could see it even on the different websites, right? If you go to, if you went to PPF or PFN or, CBS, Bucky's picks on the NFL network. I mean, he had us taking Osiris Torrance with the 13th pick. I mean, So you could see the variance of different people. Mel Kiper, everybody had. You're right. I mean, the boards vary so much.
Yeah. And what we have to remember is that, they're going to work off of their board, right? They're going to work off of their board. They're not going to work off of our board. We can, as fans, we can like picks, or we can agree with picks. We can disagree with picks. But I don't think that Joe Douglas is going to sway his decisions based on what Jets Chaos, his big board looked like, or Dom C's, or Anthony G's, or Hennessy Heisman's, or anyone's. You know what I mean? They have their board, and their board might look different than the Patriots, and the Patriots might look different than the Rams, and so on and so forth. So, listen. All in all, I think that I love the players that we got. I really do. Was I surprised as a whole at some of them? Absolutely. And I think it's more so because it was that shock factor.
Yeah, that's what it was for me. It was just surprise. I'm trying much better, and I think I've gotten better at the no judgment, because just the realization of who the hell am I? If I was at all qualified to judge them, I would be working at One Jets Drive.
That's right.
And fulfilling a dream. But I don't work there. I have a full-time job, obviously. I don't have nearly the time to put the time and the hours that they must put in. So while I get nervous about things, while I'm shocked about things, I no longer judge. And I think I'm like you. To me, it's like maybe 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you could look back at a draft and say, how did we do? I know there are some people upset about this draft, but I'm going to say one thing about Joe Douglas, and I said it on Twitter, one of your conversations where someone kept attacking Joe Douglas and the New York Jets scouting department, and I'll just say this. You may not like the draft. You guys might be questioning it, but look at our roster from 2020. Look at who the Jets had on their roster. Remember when Marcus May was our big star that people were crying over because we wouldn't re-sign him? Mm-hmm. And now look at our roster today. Aaron Rodgers would never even consider or contemplate joining the New York Jets roster in 2020. It would be a waste of his time. But for some reason, he thinks that we're a team worthy of him trying to win one last championship within his final years of his career. Who built that roster? It's JD, this scouting department. That's who built this roster. It doesn't mean that every single decision and move they made is a perfect one or even a good one. But what it means is the overall product is we have a roster that now with Aaron Rodgers on top of it makes us a contender in the NFL, a real serious contender. And I don't see how anybody can argue that fact.
That's right. That's right. And Glenn Naughton from Jets Nation put out an interesting tweet today. And I actually just earlier today, I had Glenn as a guest on my podcast, which will be put out this week for everyone. And we had a great conversation, but he put out an interesting tweet where he put up what the Jets defensive line, defensive, edge or, edge defensive line group looked like in 2020 and where it looks now, for the Jets fans that can remember, how long have we been saying, God damn, man, we're going to bypass. If we can just get an edge rusher in here, if we could just get an edge now, now it's, we don't need another edge rusher. Since when? We always need edge rushers. They always need edge rushers. Listen, and edge rushers are just one of those premier positions that you can never have enough of. Left tackles, edge rushers, quarterbacks, those are the premier positions that you just always going to want to have an influx of talent with,
especially in our scheme.
Especially in our scheme, exactly.
We all saw the difference in the last 2 years between not pressuring the quarterback and what our defense looked like, and then suddenly pressuring the quarterback consistently more and what that defense looked like. I mean, at this point, we have to know as Jet fans that everything with us is pressuring the quarterback. Otherwise, 21. You want the defense from 22? Pressure the quarterback.
Yeah. Dylan, what's up, buddy? Speaking of Jet Nation, Dylan's with the co-host for Jet Nation Radio and the podcast. I think they go on Thursdays. Guys, listen up to them if you want some good information. He says, Dom, where does McDonald stack in my edge rankings? So I had him 5th in my rankings. I think the only guys that went past, I had him in the same tier as where I had Nolan Smith. I had the normal, your normal guys. I had Will Anderson up top. I had Tyree Wilson up top. I had Tommy Adebaware. He was a big favorite of mine. I had him above, and then I had Nolan Smith and Will Anderson right there. And right after that was Lucas Van Ness. So I have Will McDonald, not Will Anderson. Will McDonald and Nolan Smith right up at the same tier, right about the same grade. I personally didn't have first round grades on either of those guys, but I only had 17 first round, grades when my scouting was all done. And that's just me. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. And we may as well just dive in, and we'll start with that first pick.
Yeah.
Have you done more research, gotten more information? Do you have different opinions of him now? Or what do you just want to say about Will McDonald now overall, just a player?
Well, I'll say this. Yeah, when we were on the board, I really thought that, obviously I think that, I can't speak for Joe Douglas in the front office, but, I think it's safe to assume that they had their mindset on the offensive tackle. From what I understand, there was really only 2 offensive tackles that they were honed in on, and that was Peter Skoronski, who was first, and Broderick Jones, who was second. I know that they liked Paris Johnson, but they didn't expect him to be down there. So I don't think they, accounted for him to really be in the mix at 15. And from what I understand, they weren't very high on Darnell Wright. So once those 2 tackles were off the board, or once Pittsburgh traded up for Jones, in my mind, I assumed that it was between 2 players. I assumed it was between Jackson Smith and Jigba and Kalijah Kancey, because those, not necessarily that those are the next 2 guys on my board, but I think that, that those were just what everyone had been talking about as kind of fallbacks, so the McDonald thing came out of left field. All right. Now I'll say this. It has nothing to do with the player himself, because, Will McDonald's extremely talented. Those of you who have seen highlights or have, had the opportunity to dive into some of his tape, see him live. I had, we had, me and Green Bean had a chance to see him, in person down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. The guy has special traits, and this is something that seemed to be a resounding factor in what Joe Douglas was looking at from this draft class. He wanted guys that had elite traits: size, speed, length, strength. Those are the things that he kind of honed in on, right? So, and Will McDonald offers that. Will McDonald is, he steps in, he steps in right now, and he probably has a skill set that no other edge rusher on our team has, right? With the speed that he offers, with the ridiculous length that he offers. I mean, he can get around that edge, and they call him, they use the word twitchy, that fast twitch response. And he's, hands down the twitchiest edge that we have on this in this group right now. Right. So You combat that with elite handwork. The way he uses his hands, the way he uses his knife, the way he can fight and bend and dip. They talked about him being very bendy. The what he can do around the edge, even if he can't, if he's beat and being pushed outside the pocket, he's long enough to still affect the play. Like, the guy led the Big Ten in forced fumbles and strip sacks over his career, so on and so forth. It's those kind of traits, that length that he offers, the athleticism, the bendiness that he can do, and he's got a whole toolbox of counter rush moves that rivals anybody on our team. We all know and we all love Bryce Huff, and we all know how effective he was in the limited amount of time that he saw the field. And I'll tell you right now, Will McDonald comes in with a better set of pass rushing skills, than Bryce Huff has. He's more athletic, he's longer, he's just as fast. His first step is just as good as Bryce Huff's. He's a better version of Bryce Huff. Although I think that they're going to play off of each other very, very well. All right. Now, the thing, and I'm not saying anything that's new, or I'm not, saying anything. I mean, the big thing with Will McDonald last year was that his production dipped from the previous 2 years in college last year. He was a double-digit sack guy, in 20 and 21. And then his production really took a dip last year, but, they were playing him out of position. Iowa State plays a very, very wonky style defense where they had him lined up more inside. He wasn't.
I saw that, and I saw that pointed out, and it's evident that that's not his game.
Yeah, no, I mean, they played him, for layman's terms, for guys who, aren't, as astute in the lingo or whatnot. If you think of Leonard Williams, when he played with the Jets in a 3-man front, and he lined up in that, right over the tackle or to the inside of the tackle, they call it the 4-eye or the 5, where he's right over the tackle. That's where Will McDonald plays, and he was kind of miscast there. Like, Will McDonald and his skill set needs to be outside, so he can use that speed and transfer that into power and get into the rusher. His best work isn't done within the tackle box; it's done outside of it. So, I think that, I think that the Jets will be able to utilize him and his strengths in a much more better, more efficient manner. Now, you also got to remember, we all know that the Jets and Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich make a point of keeping fresh legs on the field. You now have you can have a lethal 4-man front with any combination of Lawson or JFM or Quinnen or Bryce Huff or Will McDonald or Michael Clemens, the list, or Jermaine Johnson, like the list goes on and on.
It's crazy.
It's and if you think about the AFC, think about the quarterbacks that we play, right? We got to see Josh Allen twice. We got to see Tua Tagovailoa twice. This year we're going to see Deshaun Watson. We're going to see Patrick Mahomes. We're going to see guys, that are we're going to see Jalen Hurts. We're going to see Daniel Jones. We're going to see some very high-end quarterbacks, right? And our defense works best when we can create pressure and cause chaos amongst the front four. So we brought a guy in there that can step in and has skill sets and traits different than any of those guys here. He might not have the brute strength that Carl Lawson has coming off the edge, but he can create pressure just as well, just in a different fashion. You know what I mean? He might not have this, he might not have the same speed or get off that Bryce Huff has, but he can still bend and get and dip and rip and get through that tackle just as good as Bryce Huff, right? He might not have, the strength to set the edge like a Jermaine Johnson or a JFM, you know what I mean? But doesn't mean that he's weak. He just utilizes it and kind of avoids contacts and sheds in different ways. Like, this is just another tool that we can, kind of utilize and roll out there to really make our front four exactly what the Robert Saleh front four of a defense needs to be.
Yeah, second and 5, you're probably going to have JJ or JFM out there. You know what I mean? Third and 15, you're gonna have McDonald and Carl Lawson, or we play situational in our rotations as well, right? So you have the right personnel in. You want to have the right personnel in, but isn't it going to be fun at the end of games when we have leads, like when A-Rod puts us up and we're up by 17 points in the middle of the third quarter, and they have to go shotgun and pass every play? I mean, we're built for that, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. And that's a great point. People don't realize is that, you would hope that, the Aaron Rodgers-led offense is going to have games looking different than what they did last year. So there's going to be more times where the other team is in passing situations, so we're going to need to get at them, as it settled, like I said, I love I really like the player. I like his skills. I was shocked, just as anyone else was, that when his name was called. But I think it's more so because, and I'll openly admit it, and I think everyone else, if you're honest with yourself, you can probably openly admit it as well, is that no one really thought about an edge rusher that early, right? I mean, I didn't think, to me, like I said, it was offensive tackle. And if it wasn't offensive tackle, I assumed it was going to be like a Kalijah Kancey, or if there was going to be somebody else, my outlier was, Smith and Jigba, which I really didn't think that was going to be the case. And I'll say this, once the rumors came out that the Jets had done a ton of homework and a lot of work on Jackson Smith and Jigba, and all that stuff came through the media, I said it's bullshit. Because if there's one thing I've learned in the Joe Douglas regime is that news doesn't come out.
Right.
So if somebody's putting that out, and it's probably someone in Jackson Smith and Jigba's camp to try to have somebody trade up if they're really interested in get him. But I don't think that I never really thought that was a situation. I really just thought it was going to be a tackle, and if it wasn't a tackle, it was going to be Kalijah Kancey.
Yeah,
now,
that's what I thought.
So the big thing is, and I don't know how you feel. Everyone was shocked. When Will McDonald, oh my God, that's a reach. I don't know if it's a reach. Being honest, if the board falls, and that's what it is. If the board falls and he's the best guy, I can say with certainty that I don't think he would have been there at 43 for sure. Right.
I mean,
so
look, when you have that many edges, there was a lot, probably every GM probably had a different order if they lined up their top 5, top 10 edges. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I don't see how it's not a reach if it's on his board is in his top 3 for edges. The way they were talking, it was like he was their top guy. The way they were talking, they were acting like this was their guy.
And he probably was. And listen, I don't know if he was their number 1 guy on the board, but he was their number 1 guy that was left on the board when the time came, because I just don't think they would have picked any other way. If Kalijah Kancey was the number 1 guy on the board, he was still there. They would have taken him, right? If Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback, was their top guy on the board, he was there. They would have taken him. They didn't. They took Will McDonald.
Yeah. Now, some guy just had a quick question.
Sure.
Just a quick answer.
Nolan Smith or McDonald? Who would
very close?
Who would I have taken? Like I said, I had them ranked in the same tier. I think pre-draft, leading up to the draft, especially post-combine, I was a little bit higher on Nolan Smith. But that's because that's that recency bias. He blew up at the combine. They are 2 really, really different players. They really, really are. I think Nolan Smith is more of of your your typical I'll try to phrase this right, like your typical outside linebacker, where in an odd man set and a 3-man front, where he's standing he's standing on his feet on the outside. He can rush off the edge, he could drop back into pass coverage. Nolan Smith is very, very good linebacker. Sounds
like Micah Parsons.
Yeah, exactly. Micah Parsons light. Now McDonald's different. McDonald is a true defensive end. He's going to play with your hand. He's going to play with his hand in the dirt. He's got more. He's got the length. He's got a little bit bigger of a frame. They're both a little bit on the light side. From what we expect out of or what we normally see out of a defensive end. But McDonald is your typical 4-3 hand in the dirt defensive end, whereas Nolan Smith's more of your stand-up kind of roving, blitzing, extra body. He can play linebacker, he can rush the quarterback, so on and so forth. So would I have, like I said, I was higher on Nolan Smith after he tested out like a freak. But when all said and done, when I put my final rankings in, they were right there next to each other. I don't know. I don't know who I would have taken. If push comes to shove. I think they offer different skill sets, and now as all the dust settled, it's not just because the Jets took them, and I'm not just trying to be that homer. Mm-hmm. I think that McDonald's a better fit for our defense than Nolan Smith is. Okay. So hope that makes sense. Some guy.
No, it makes sense to me. I mean, like you explained it perfectly. If we played you play a 3-4, then you take Nolan Smith. But
mm-hmm.
I think, in my opinion, I don't know if you'll agree with it or not. Hey, what's going on, Braden? All the way.
Hey, Braden.
All the way in New Zealand. In my opinion, I feel like, and you might disagree, I don't know. I feel like Nolan Smith had a very, very high ceiling. But a very high ceiling. But I feel like McDonald has the higher floor.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. Fair.
Yeah, listen, Nolan Smith was a little bit more of a risk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's smaller, and like I said, he's a little bit different of a player than Will McDonald is. Who's going to be the better pro? We'll find out in 5 years. We'll find out. We'll find out who's going to be better. Push comes to shove. Gun to my head, I don't know which one I would take. I had him ranked in the same exact tier. They were at the same level. And obviously, the Jets thought a lot more of Will McDonald in their scheme, especially in that wide 9 setting. Where Carl Lawson lines up, where he can get some space in between. Either the tight end or the tackle that's lined up on there, and really become advantageous to there. Nolan Smith might be a little bit better, in space against the run than Will McDonald, but Will McDonald gets at the quarterback a lot better than Nolan Smith. If you're comparing traits like that, so.
I mean, Snowball, I would say that's a possible combination,
mm-hmm.
but it could be Carl Lawson and McDonald. It could be Carl Lawson and Huff. It could be based on how many snaps they've taken and who's fresh, and in that moment, who has the fresher legs, right?
Yeah. Listen, there are situations where you can bring, you can have all 3 of them on the field, right? You can have Carl Lawson or Huff did it even last year at his size, is where he's rushing off of the inside. Not necessarily from the inside, but like starting from the inside, stunting outside, so on and so forth. Yeah. Billy, he just made a point. Green Bay passed on Smith too. 29 teams passed on Nolan Smith.
Yeah, maybe
29 teams passed on Nolan Smith.
Yeah, maybe they didn't want to, take that risk. And
yeah,
so Kareem comes in. A lot of people talk about JFM inside. I'm sorry, I know you're not the biggest fan of that in the world, but do you think there is a possibility, if we don't sign anybody else, that JFM and Michael Clemens could take some and kind of fill in as like one piece of that rotation combined. So they each take a very low percentage of snaps in the inside, but combined take some, fill in some of that void. You think that's a possibility?
Listen, do I think that he's going to see the lion's share of snaps from the inside in early downs? I don't. Could he end up overall having more snaps from the inside? Like that inside-outside flexibility that he has is so good. Like he's the strong side edge. Him and Jermaine Johnson are strong side edge with the capability, to flip inside and pass in situations and provide pressure from the inside. Like that's just what he is. He is, like I said, on the strong side. Your main focus, if there is a main focus, is to make sure that edge is set. Right, you're more run centric than you are in that wide nine or that weak side where you're off the ball, you're spread out a little bit, you're kind of getting that, that extra 2-step head start. That's not what these guys, in Jermaine Johnson and JFM are doing. They're up there in the trenches on the outside shade of the the tackle or the tight end or where the formation is, and they're in there. They're in the tackle box. Guys like Lawson and Will McDonald will be kind of outside of that. They're pressure. Their goal is to. It's not to say that they don't play the run, but their goal is to really affect the game in passing situations with pressure, right? And I think that's what they both do very, very well. We have a very, very eclectic group of defensive ends, who are interchangeable. And I think it's a recipe for a really, really strong, Robert Saleh coach defense.
Yeah.
So, listen, Will McDonald is a very good player. Will McDonald is a very good player. Somebody's talking about the Jahmyr Gibbs, Haider Ali, 10:07, Jeremy.
Okay, I'm way behind because I didn't even know Haider was here. What's up, my brother?
Yeah.
I see. I'm not seeing the time, so let me. Oh no, now I am 10:07.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, I fell really far behind. You guys are chatting it up.
Yeah, and he's talking about Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I don't know. I'll say this, and I don't think I'm saying anything out of context. This I heard as a rumor. And then it's kind of been, verified by some people that are in the know. Green Bean talked about this. Green Bean, has a very, very good, reliable source on the inside that's, has fed him some information. And, that source said with certainty that if Jahmyr Gibbs was on the board, he was going to be the pick at 15. Now, you want to talk about from left field. That would have been something that was floored. That would have been something that floored me. Now, I will say this, and I think addressing the running back position was something that was going to happen. I wouldn't have expected it at one. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs was somebody that they had on their board higher than Will McDonald because if this rumor does hold depth and weight, which I've heard from numerous different people now, that 100% if he was on the board, he would have been taken. And supposedly when JD was trading down, when earlier in first round, when he was trying to trade down, he was trading down to get in a position where he think he could recoup some capital and still land Jahmyr Gibbs. And then Jahmyr Gibbs came off the board with Detroit. So, listen, that would have floored me. Like, I definitely didn't have Gibbs anywhere near a first rounder. But again, in a Hackett system, that a guy like Gibbs makes tons of sense. Somebody who, is lightning fast, can affect the passing game, wholeheartedly. Again, think of Green Bay. They consistently use multiple running backs, and especially in a year where you have Breece Hall coming back from an injury and you don't know. where he's going to, they say all things are looking good for week 1. I don't buy it. I don't think he, even if, he gets clearance, I don't think he's going to be 100% coming back of an injury that, of that magnitude that soon. So running back makes sense. That would have thrown me for a big loop if Jahmyr Gibbs was really the pick. So
I've definitely thought of Clemens on the inside. Patrick, you're not the only one that thinks about it, but the guys have positions for a reason. They have certain skill sets that we like about them, but I think they did use him a little on the inside, and I think that they do like him for that versatility.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean you're gonna move him there completely if he has a tendency to get to the passer, and remember, it was his rookie year last year, so he has the potential to be much better than he was, and I thought he played really well. Let's move on. So second round comes along. Now, a lot of us had John Michael Schmitz as our number 1 center on the board. So obviously,
as did I
right?
as I did,
right. And now, look, the pick in position did not surprise me. What surprised me is that we had the pick of the litter. What surprised me was the slipping of so many of these guys. That was surprising to me. Now, again, this is about getting caught in our own biases. I was shocked that they took Tippmann, not because Tippmann's not better than Schmitz or not, but nothing to do with that. It was my own bias. I bought into my own bias for so long that Schmitz is the guy. I didn't even consider the fact that JD might look at it differently. The scouting department might look at it differently. And for our system and for our scheme, and through their interviews, they felt that Tippmann was the better guy. So it took me like 30 seconds to adjust my and figure it out. And I realized, hey, if that's the guy they liked, that's a pick where we got a quality player, where it wasn't reaching. We got a high value, high quality, potential Pro Bowl player, definitively in a position of need, if not this very upcoming year, but certainly over the next 5 to 7 years, whatever it is, 10 years. How did you feel? Tell us about Tippmann.
I had JMS as my number 1 center, but as the process went on, and he was my number 1 center, and that is the truth, and that's the case. But as the process came on, or went on, a lot of teams thought of them at pretty much at the same level. A lot of teams liked Tippmann more than JMS. Listen, here's the reality. You're splitting hair between the two guys. They're both very, very good prospects. They're both very, very talented. It really came down to, I think it came down, and again, it came out more and more that the Jets were in on Tippmann the whole time. Now, again, it threw me off because I know that they had 2 separate meetings with John Michael Schmitz. They were in on the centers, because they sent their entire coaching staff to the Arkansas Pro Day to work out Ricky Stromberg, right? They sent their offensive line staff to the Ohio State Pro Day to work out Luke Whippler. They had numerous visits with John Michael Schmitz, and they were in on Tippmann as well. And as we came closer the last week or two, the rumor was that they were like Tippmann was their guy. And the Jets aren't the only team in that. I know that we have, with recency bias, we all kind of fell in love with John Michael Schmitz right off the bat. And in reality, if John Michael Schmitz was the pick, I would have been elated. Joe Tippmann was a pick, I'm elated. They're both 2 very good. The difference between the 2, and positive or negative, I think Joe Tippmann is a better fit schematically for what we do, especially in the run game. He affects and moves in space and is that absolute road grader in the middle at the pivot, even more so than John Michael Schmitz. I personally, in my assessment and analysis, I thought that John Michael Schmitz was, better, had a better anchor. I liked him in pass protection a little bit more. But I thought Joe Tippmann was much better as a run blocker. I thought Ricky Stromberg was probably the best against blocking, in run blocking. But Joe Tippmann moves very well. He's 6'6", and that's a negative to some people at the center. But if you watch him, he plays with leverage. He's not a waist bender. He bends with his knees, right? So leverage is never an issue. And the guy just moves and blows people up. If you watch, highlights and film, I urge you to just watch what he does to guys when he's pulling down the line. When he's out in the second level, he just blows right through people, and he's not a negative in the pass game. You know what I mean? He's not. He's very technical, very sound, very strong anchor. I just thought that, I just really liked John Michael Schmitz in that sense. Now, a little bit more than Joe Tippmann, in his pass sets and so on and so forth. They say, now this is not me, this is just what I read. They said that Joe Tippmann is a very, very cerebral player, and if you think about the guys, other centers that we're familiar with that have that moniker of being very cerebral, very heady players are Nick Mangold and Kevin Mawai, right? They don't make them much better. They don't make centers that we know of much better than those two, right? I mean, so all that comes into play. I think he's just a better scheme fit for us. And the Jets were dead set on Joe Tippmann. Like, you couldn't go wrong either way. Joe Tippmann's 2 years younger, and again, I don't think that really played into play because Schmitz is only 24, Tippmann's 22. Schmitz went in, and the Jets took plenty of 24-year-olds in this draft.
Yeah, they did.
So
good question here from Dano. Are there any weaknesses that you see?
He doesn't listen. We talked about the pass blocking, and what I liked more about John Michael Schmitz, and it's easy to compare the two. They're going to be compared forever, especially now that they're both playing at MetLife. I think what I liked about John Michael Schmitz more than Joe Tippmann is you watch him sustain his blocks more, especially in the pass set. It's, sometimes Tippmann would kind of ease up or let off, or even if it's in that second level or something like that, he kind of, I don't want to say he gives up, but he just, he kind of eases off a little bit. I didn't see that in any John Michael Schmitz film that I saw. He plays through the whistle, beyond Tippmann is a road grader, but Schmitz plays defines playing through the whistle. He's almost vicious. And that's, if there's any weaknesses in his game, I'm going to say that maybe being 6'6" at some point might be a little bit of a hindrance. Listen, it didn't bother him too much in college. Like I said, I think he's a very, very good, he plays in good balance and he bends at his knees as opposed to his waist. But that's at college, there's going to be, guys in the NFL are going to understand how to counteract that balance and counteract that leverage and gain leverage on themselves. That's why they're in the NFL. So that, that his height should be something, or how he adjusts to the NFL being 6'6" at center should be interesting. It's going to be something to look at. And like I said, I'd like to see him finish better or sustain his blocks a little bit more, especially in, when he's anchored down in pass sets. Just keep those feet moving as opposed to just stay anchor and just stay. Steve Avila, who is another guy that obviously we're all familiar with. He's probably one of the stronger, just pure brute strength linemen that I've seen. I've studied in a while, and I thought that was a fault of his as well. Is that he, his feet just kind of get quiet. Now he's as strong of an ox, so nobody could push through him. And again, that's at college. We're going to see it in what happens in the NFL. That's what I'd like to see Joe Tippmann. I'd like to see him kind of keep his feet moving, keep those feet chopping and those legs grinding, to sustain blocks a little bit more. with Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be a little different because Aaron Rodgers is he's a guy that wants to get the ball 2 seconds and get it out real quick. So listen, I had John Michael Schmitz higher, but I'm not in the least upset that the Jets chose Joe Tippmann. It really was one in most people's eyes. It really was 1 and 1A.
I'm super excited to see him in the running game for sure. Obviously I looked up more of him than I ever have in the last 24 hours, 36 hours.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's exciting. It's fun to watch him on top of people, putting people onto the ground, how he gets outside, gets to the second level or goes around, the movement when they come around on a sweep or something. Like, it was fun to watch, and it's fun to watch him end up on top of people. He seems nasty. He seems like the kind of guy you want on the offensive line. I'm excited about it. But now, hey, we after we picked him, we didn't have a third round pick, so we waited a really long time. We finally got there, and I believe that was did we trade down? I think when we finally got there, we actually traded down, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we got to pick 113 or whatever, 112, and we were
112, and we
traded down to 120.
We traded down to 120. That's when the Patriots came up to draft a kicker.
That's right. So we take one. I was shocked because there were a lot of names I was screaming out.
Sure.
But now we make our pick at 120. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So before we get into the pick at 120, let's just talk about on Sunday, right? So Sunday starts at whatever, it's pick 102 or something like that is the first pick of the day. Or Saturday, I'm sorry. I don't know what I don't know again what the Jets are thinking. I know what I'm seeing, and there was 2 guys that I really, really wanted personally that I would have loved to Jets again. One of those was Tommy Adebawore. He was still on the board, right? He was still on the board. And the other guy was a tackle that I was a little bit higher on than a lot of other people, and that was Blake Freeland. I thought he was a perfect scheme fit for us. Another guy who's, tall, long, athletic, great mover. And that's before we get into that, that's another thing we didn't talk about with Tippmann. Again, he fits the mold of the guys targeted by Joe Douglas here. Super, super long, super strong. He's got more obviously overall, size, wingspan, length, longer arms than John Michael Schmitz. Again, I think I don't know what his RAS was. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think he tested fully enough to get to accumulate a RAS score. But if I was a betting man and I'd had to say if he did everything that he would have been in the higher echelon of all the centers, probably in the 9s. But I digress. We're in round 4, and there's 2 guys. There's Blake Freeland and there's Tommy Adebawore. And I'm pining for some way for the Jets to get up there, because I think Adebawore would be a perfect fit. He can slide inside. He could be that defensive tackle, penetrator next to Quentin Williams, bounce outside when you need him. I know we took Will McDonald, but, another piece on that defensive front. And then, I still, wanted to bring in another tackle. I went into this draft, and this is the honest to God truth, guys. Jeremy will tell you. A lot of people who know me will tell you, like, if the pick was Broderick Jones, I would have been fine with it. I wasn't like down on Broderick Jones, who was my favorite tackle. But I wasn't, I wasn't down on him. But I didn't think Broderick Jones was going to come in and supplant either a healthy Mekhi Becton or Dwayne Brown. So to me, if health is 100%, I thought that those were our 2 bookend tackles. Right.
Yeah.
So the idea of having to walk out of the first round with a tackle wasn't necessarily I would have been happy with it. It would have been fine. But as long as we got a tackle, I was good. And the tackles were off the board in the first round, so they pivoted, which is fine. So we're here, and like I said, Blake Freeland is the tackle that I was really looking at, and he happened to go, a couple picks before us. Tommy Adebawore went. I know everyone was really, really hanging on DeJuan Jones. I love DeJuan Jones' size. I love his length, but I just didn't see him as a fit, in our scheme. He just doesn't do what we really want our tackles. What Joe Douglas is really looking for in those tackles. He doesn't have nearly the athleticism that's necessary. On top of that, I couldn't imagine that Joe Douglas was going to dip his toe in the toxic pond of a 370-pound tackle again. You know what I mean?
Well, that was what turned me off of him on every mock. Was not me personally, but I knew. I kind of had this feeling. I was like, we can't go down that road again.
Yeah.
Some of the mocks I had no choice because I traded back and that was the only one left. And I said, well, they'll take DeJuan Jones over nothing. Yeah. I didn't think he'd slip that far, but I understood Jet fans' feelings towards taking another extremely large man that if he strains his knee is going to take 4 times longer to heal. Then, we're tired of that.
Yeah. Let me just check something real quick. I believe I had DeJuan Jones. I'm going to just check real quick on my big board here. But I believe I had DeJuan Jones as like my tackle 8 or 7. See if I can find it. Anyhow, I just didn't think he was a fit for the Jets. I really didn't. And it didn't matter anyway because he was off the board 1 pick before we were supposed to pick at 112, and that's when the trade went down and this, that, and the other thing. I was shocked that DeJuan Jones lasted to the 4th round, but then it came out that he supposedly he rubbed a lot of teams wrong in the here we are. Yeah, I had DeJuan Jones 7. So I had guys like Antoine Harrison and Matthew Bergeron ahead of DeJuan Jones. And Blake Freeland right after him. So DeJuan Jones is off the board, and then I'm like, okay, so let's see what happens. They trade down, so on and so forth, and they snag a guy who not a lot of people knew about. I think it was mostly because Pitt plays in the ACC. They're not a powerhouse. On top of it, he missed a lot of the time last year. He got hurt. He had a knee injury, and that's Carter Warren. Now, again, Carter Warren checks off all the boxes that all these prospects in Joe Douglas have. Elite height, good movement, good speed, good athleticism. Carter Warren is he's a very, very strong pass blocking tackle. He does a very good job mirroring, good length, doesn't let guys out on the outside. He's not the strongest run blocker at the point of attack. But again, for a 4th round tackle, a guy who's not going to be asked, barring injury, to come in and plug and play, I think that's fine. You know what I mean? This is the same exact situation as Max Mitchell. When we drafted Max Mitchell last year, you drafted Max Mitchell. Yeah, Carter Warren, again, didn't test out because of that knee, so he didn't have an official RAS score. But again, you could assume he would have been 8+. Max Mitchell tested out a little bit lower than that, which was different. But Max Mitchell was brought in as a 4th round developmental tackle.
Right? Technically sound.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Needs to get a little stronger.
Very, very good fundamentals, but needed to get stronger. Right? That was what we all.
Yeah. So Carter Warren is along those same lines. I think he's much more advanced, and he's a better player at this point in his career coming into the league than Max Mitchell was.
Wow.
I'll say that. I'll say that confidently. If he didn't get hurt, Carter Warren's a 2nd round pick. So
Jeez.
Carter Warren, if he came out last year, he had the opportunity to come out last year, right? But he went back. He went back. He went back for his senior year, 5th year senior. If he came out last year, he's a 2nd round pick.
Jeez,
and then he got hurt. Then he got hurt.
Wow.
So that's why his draft stock dropped a little bit. So listen, he's a guy that can, the things that I like about him, like I said, pass protection, wonderful. Got good length, 34 plus or 35 or 34 and 3/4 inch, almost 35-inch arms. Good length, solid, fundamentally sound with his footwork. Could he get better at the point of attack? Could he use that lower half a little bit more and drive and become a better drive run blocker? Absolutely. And that's going to take some time. Now he's going to have to get into that NFL mindset, and he's going to get with an NFL weight staff that's going to put some functional strength into his game, on top of getting back 100% on that, on that injured knee. So he's a guy that, like I said, I think he could be a starter in a year or two, without a doubt. He might be the heir apparent to Dwayne Brown. There's a lot of people, Glenn Naughton from Jet Nation, who I, talked to today, thinks that he can come in and compete for that starting job with Dwayne Brown. I don't know if I'm there yet on him, but he's a very solid prospect. 24 years old, like I said, needs to definitely get a little stronger, but has skill sets and traits that are above average in certain things, especially in his length and his athleticism. And it's something that obviously Joe Douglas had targeted. So you missed on the tackles that you wanted, Jones and Skoronski in the first round. You passed on the guys that were in the second round, and I don't even think, like I said, I think Bergeron was off the board already. So I don't even know what other tackles that they would have looked at in that area.
Bergeron went fast.
Yeah. And I really, really think, I don't know this. There's no fact behind this. This is just my assumption. But I really think that Blake Freeland would have been in the discussion because he just has those traits that Joe Douglas liked. He has those traits that Joe Douglas kind of covets. The movement skills and the length in his tackles. That's what he wants. And Blake Freeland hit that on the head, and so does Carter Warren. So, listen, he doesn't have to come in and start right now. That's a beautiful thing. Bar an injury right now, we have our two tackles. So he's coming in, and he's another good depth piece. He gets a year to kind of redshirt and learn and get stronger and so on and so forth. And then, if Dwayne Brown is off the team next year, we'll see what happens. You bring yourself in a good veteran leader, team captain, senior, a lot of starts under his belt. On top of it, he's a hometown kid. Well, he's from Jersey. He grew up a Jets fan. It's hard not to like this kid.
Yeah.
So.
It's hard not to like him.
Yeah. And then we go into the fifth round.
Yeah. So now we go down at we're at 143.
Yeah. Yeah. And this was a pick that I think everyone was happy about who knew the kid, because he's really, really good. And that's Israel Abanikanda, the running back from Pittsburgh, the
same
teammate of Carter Warren. Yeah, absolutely.
I gotta say, and I'll credit, because me, I don't try to pretend. I knew who Israel was because of one person who talked about him with me and got me into him, and that was Tigo.
Mm-hmm.
So me and Tigo, as because you're on the thread and on Twitter, on our private thread, we celebrated. We were really happy.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting a running back in that spot. But when it was that particular running back that we were so excited about, that Tigo had already given me a big rundown on, I was pretty excited.
Yeah. Abanikanda was my fourth rated running back in this class.
Jeez, I didn't know that. I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot.
I had him just under, probably in the same tier, but in points wise, I had him graded just under Jahmyr Gibbs, who was my third ranked running back.
Wow.
So the beautiful thing about Israel Abanikanda is that he's a legit home run hitter. Anytime he touches the ball, there's a chance he can take it to the house, and you just can't have enough of those guys on the team, right? He's built very, very, very good at 5'10", 5'11", 205 pounds, I believe he is, 216 pounds, excuse me, 4.3 speed, legitimate track speed. He has game-changing speed. He perfect fit for an outside zone, just like our entire running back stable right now. They're all perfect scheme fits. They all have that one cut and go ability, and I think Israel Abanikanda has that extra gear that oh my God, Michael Carter doesn't have,
Right.
and also Bam Knight. But what they all have in common, like I said, they all have that ability to plant and get north and get vertical, get north. Abanikanda just has that extra gear where he can just blow right by you. They all have, Abanikanda has wonderful contact balance. He's not going to go down with the first arm tackle. I mean, the guy, he could score touchdowns from anywhere. Now, he wasn't utilized, and I'm not saying he's a bad pass catcher. He only had 12 receptions last year. He just wasn't utilized in it. I know that measurably, just based on measurables, his hands are small. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But their offense was just, it just didn't utilize him in the pass game so much. I'm not saying that I'm very confident that he can contribute there as well. But this to me is something that smells like Nathaniel Hackett's doing. He wants multiple guys in there. He wants guys, they interchange the running backs. He needs guys that are going to affect the game in passing situations and have that ridiculous, that can play in the outside zone and have that next gear ability. That's what Abanikanda brings to the Jets. Even with a healthy Breece Hall, which I don't think he's going to be healthy week one, I don't think he's going to be the Breece Hall that we remember come week one, whether he's playing or not. But I think we're gonna see a healthy running back rotation, and Abanikanda's probably the one rookie outside of Tippmann who is, Tippmann has a good chance to start. I know that Saleh said that it's going to be about they're going to go into camp and let the best man win between him and McGovern. I think Abanikanda has the chance to see the most playing time in his rookie year.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because when I think of Breece Hall, what I loved about him last year before I saw him play for us was I felt like every time his foot hit the ground when he was running, he was causing an earthquake. Like he was like punishing the ground with his feet. Bam, 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 bam. It reminded me of like Marshall Faulk when I watched him in San Diego State. Like it was just like he just was pounding on the ground so hard. It's a hard thing to describe. But this is what I saw with this kid. He reminds me the most of Breece Hall when it comes to just if he gets ahead of the defense, he's just like that picture of Breece Hall when every Viking was chasing him.
Yes.
It's like that kind of thing. It's like if this guy gets by around the edge or in front, he's gone. No one's catching him. And the way he just pounds the ground with his feet, it looks like he's going to shake this whole stadium. I want to just quickly thank the Buffalo Jet fan for his super chat. I also want to say that Tuesday night at 7 p.m., Buffalo's going to be breaking down the draft, and a few of us are going to be jumping on. So look out for that on Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
Thanks for the super chat, brother.
But I think Izzy Abanikanda is going to be a guy that easily becomes a fan favorite. Again, another hometown kid from Brooklyn, stand up, right?
Yeah.
And listen, I'm just gonna I'm just gonna love listening to Jeremy try to say Israel Abanikanda.
I'm just gonna call him Izzy.
That's gonna be, to me, that's why I like the guy the most, because I know Jeremy's not gonna be able to say his name.
Anaconda.
But I think, like I said, he's he's going to there's something to be said about speed, right? And he has that in drones, right?
He went to high school. He went to high school right near LMB Spumoni Gardens. So
yeah. I guess that's positive. I don't know. But like anytime he touches the ball, he's a danger to score. Yeah. And you got to love that for a guy that's 5'10", 216 pounds. He's built like an NFL quarterback, NFL running back, and he just turned 21 years old. How crazy is that?
That's crazy.
He's a baby. We now have a 22-year-old Breece Hall. We have a 21-year-old Israel Abanikanda. We have a 24-year-old Michael Carter, and a 23-year-old Bam Knight.
It's crazy.
That is your running back stable.
Well, when you look at San Francisco and you look at Miami and you look at some of the branches, of the Shanahan, tree, it's not uncommon for them to pursue multiple running backs, and not just Jags, but like multiple running backs that have speed or, attributes like talent. Like, look at Miami, the backfield they're building, right? And they took some from San Francisco, just like we did. Look at San Francisco, because I think I saw them drafting another running back. They're constantly putting talent in their backfield. So it doesn't shock me that we're being built that way.
Yeah. And listen, I don't know if it's necessarily that we're being built that way. I think that's just the way that the NFL is going. I mean, gone are the days of the bell cow running backs, right? Outside of Derrick Henry, there's not many more of them, right? Even then, even that next tier of guys, like, Nick Chubb had Kareem Hunt for all those years. Jonathan Taylor really doesn't have anything. He's probably, if you had to define bell cow, he's probably still that 3-down guy.
He was hurt though, so
Dalvin Cook maybe. I don't even know about that because he had Madison there. So, gone are those days, and I think it just makes sense to have guys, who can come in and step in and have those fresh legs, just like we have on the edge, right? And that's wonderful, Nathan Colgrove. I think that is the funniest thing I saw in a while. My Abanikanda don't want none unless you got buns, hun.
He's a great kid. You guys should check out on the Jet site. There's some interviews and things like that of Abanikanda. Is he? He's a great kid. But the first thing you're going to think, if you're anything like me, is, oh my God, he's so young. Like, he is he just looks like. Now they're just starting to look like my students when I was a high school teacher. You know what I mean? Now I'm just seeing kids. He's a kid. He's so young.
Yeah.
But he's so real and down to earth. It was really funny. Like, they were asking him questions like, who's your favorite team? He goes, well, I didn't really have a favorite team. He goes, I just had favorite players. And they said, like who? And he goes, LT, Tomlinson, and Reggie Bush. Yeah. And then he goes, we quickly said, but my father is a die-hard Jet fan, so he's really happy, and that makes me happy. And then they said, how is it going to be to play with Aaron Rodgers? He goes, well, first of all, that's my sister's favorite player, so she's really happy. And then he started saying it was going to be like an honor to play with him, and that he could learn so much from him.
Yeah. So I think at the 5th round, it's a steal, man. Randy. I'm going to answer Randy's question real quick, if you don't mind.
Is it right here, this one?
Yeah. He says, Dom, who do you think out of those running backs is on the roster? I think all 4 of them.
Yeah, we'll go with 4. Because Ty Johnson's gone.
I think all 4 of them are on the roster without a doubt, especially with the uncertainty lying around the health or the full comeback from Breece Hall's knee injury. I think that all 4 of them make the roster without a doubt. I think we carry 4. I think we carry 5 running backs if you bring Bawden back, which I don't necessarily don't think is a guarantee. But yeah, I think all 4 of those tailbacks are going to be on the roster. So that's round 5.
Yeah.
And then we go into round 6, and this is where I got to tell you, I got nothing. I got nothing.
Lost. I was lost on this pick.
This was the pick where I said, huh? Now in fairness, I don't claim to be the be all end all. I don't know. There's tons of people who know a lot more than me. Like last year, as an example, I didn't do a lot of work last year on Michael Clemens. When they drafted Michael Clemens, I was like, who?
Yeah.
And this is the same right here with our 6th round pick, Zaire Barnes. I really don't have anything. I didn't see any games. I didn't watch him play. I got nothing except what I read up on. As a matter of fact, I went into my my little all 22 stash. What is Modine's problem today?
I don't know.
I have him blocked on the phone, but for some reason he's showing up on my computer.
I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes he'll say thoughtful things and show he's a Jet fan, and then sometimes he's just in the mood to be negative and just say anti everything. So I don't have an answer for it. He leaves comments and watches my videos. I mean, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
He supports the channel.
But I didn't. I got nothing on Zaire Barnes. The only thing that I do know about him is that he's a converted safety. You know, he started his career, his first 2 years, he was a safety at Western Michigan. You know, has that same body frame that you know, Saleh seems to like for his rangy middle linebackers. You know, the Fred Warner build. You know, 6'1", 225 pounds. You know, loose hips, can move, and that's all I got on him. I have not watched him, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you anything that I don't know. So it was the first head scratcher, like real head scratcher. Some people, you know, said he wasn't going to be anything more than a undrafted free agent, and maybe that's the case. But they saw something in him to justify a 6th-round pick. So I got nothing.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I got nothing on him.
I don't blame you. Yeah. They like something about him.
Yeah. He's got something. Maybe it's special team abilities. You know, maybe they think that, you know, he can affect the ball. Like, you know, I read up on his stats. You know, he was first team All MAC. You know, which is a good thing. You know, over 100 tackles. You know, 15 tackles for loss. You know, an interception, a bunch of you know. I think he had 12 pass breakups in his college career, all that stuff that I read, but I haven't seen him play, so I really can't, with any sort of conviction, say anything about Zaire Barnes. Other than I'm curious. Other than I'm interested to listen to what Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh and the front office really say about him and what they think his role could be and where he fits in the grand scheme. So
we got a super chat from Randy. Jeremy, Don, thank you for the insight. Have to be up early, but I appreciate the insight and content. Let's go Jets. Randy, thank you so much for the super chat.
Yeah,
It's really
man.
thoughtful of you. Really appreciate that. You have a great night's sleep and have a great week, my friends. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you just as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 7th round, and the last pick that they acquired in that weird trade back with New England, you know, they just threw a dart and you know, kind of aimed at a unicorn, and that's exactly what they got in Zach Kuntz, tight end from Old Dominion, small school kid, almost 6'8", 255 pounds, has the number one all-time. Has tested out as the number one all-time most athletic tight end to ever go through the relative athletic scoring model. 7th all-time. You know, he scored a perfect 10. He can't get any higher, but yeah, I don't know why other teams weren't kind of taking shots at a guy like this. Like I said, almost 6'8". He runs a 4.5. He's got a 42-inch vertical leap, you know, strong hands, good agility. You know, he's got the makings of what Nathaniel Hackett wants in a big slot. And I think if he sees, you know, he's not much of a blocker. I think that what he does in space is good in terms of blocking, but at the point of attack, it's not his strong point, you know. But I mean, if nothing more, right off the bat, you got a guy that has, you know, just like ridiculous elite unicorn traits, and you see what happens with it, you know, and if you can develop him and Ron Middleton can develop him, you might have something, you know, you have an athlete. That's for goddamn sure. You have somebody who's going to affect the game, maybe not in year one, but definitely affect the game sooner rather than later in red zone or 50-50 opportunities with his size and with his, you know, his leaping ability, To me, like I said, Nathaniel Hackett is synonymous for really liking big slots. He used Greg Dulcich last year as a slot, as his big slot last year. This guy can kind of come in, whether or not it's in year one, but maybe develop into that as well. Like I said, he's not your traditional inline tight end. He's your flex guy. He's your Y. He's your move tight end. And with that speed, he's going to be a mismatch. He's a mismatch wherever you put him on the field. Just ridiculous traits, and I think that's what this pick was. It was all based on traits.
Yeah, I'm kind of like freaking out over it, like wondering how he was even there. And I started watching tape on him this morning. My wife's like, I got up in the morning. She's like, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm watching tape on this tight end that we took," and he looks huge on the field. He looks big and lanky, and looks like a great possible red zone target, and just exciting to watch. And I was telling people, I think I can imagine, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I imagine him lining up a lot, like a little off the line, like more like almost like a slot.
Yeah, like a Y, like the Y, like the think of what Mike Gesicki's role was in Miami.
Daniel Meehan was a supporter of the channel, was a Miami Dolphin fan. He might even still be here. He was here before. He was saying that. He goes, "I thought Jet fans didn't like Gesicki. They were putting him down. He can't block." And I said, "Well, that's not true. A lot of Jet fans wanted to sign Gesicki." And I said, "This guy, Ruckert, we got a young guy who's going to be a great blocking tight end for sure. This kid could be the other piece of the puzzle. And he gives us this other weapon because we can kind of line him up in the slot. Like we can move him out there and have this big weapon." So that was kind of like how I felt about it. Let me get to these super chats.
Yeah. And you know what? I realized I skipped the pick, but I would take E-Boogies, and I'll talk about the pick that I skipped because we had 2 6-rounders.
So, hey, Dom, who in the Jets safety room is a true free safety or can play free safety? Which undrafted free agent is perfect for the Jets that can still sign? Like, is there a guy out there we can still sign? I know that we really didn't prepare for the undrafted free agents, but what is your feeling on safety and free safety? Is it Adams? Do they love him that much?
Listen, I'll say this. I think that just showing what the Jets have done over the past couple years, they want free safeties that have man coverage, capabilities, right? Everyone who's been in that role has been able to do that. I think Tony Adams does that very well. Tony Adams was converted cornerback that moved to safety. He played a little bit, inside, outside. He played slot corner. He played kind of that overhang safety, that big nickel. And he played a little bit of, bracketed to deep safety in Illinois. And I think that they really like Tony Adams. I personally really like Tony Adams as well. And I think the kid that I passed the draft pick that was skipped in later in the 6th round, Jarek Bernard Converse, he's another guy who's in that same exact mold. He's a transfer. He went to LSU, but he started his career in Oklahoma State, where he was he was a true free safety at Oklahoma State. Came to LSU, and they asked him to move to cornerback, and he played both slot and outside cornerback for LSU. He's got he's got those traits. Super, super tough, good build, 6'1", 205 pounds. Again, another speedy guy, very, very solid tackler. Very solid tackler. And he's got enough, like I said, he's agile enough and he's loose enough and he plays and he's shown that he has good makeup speed and he plays at range. I think he's kind of fits in that same mold of what Tony Adams is. Now, to E-Boogie's question, what's the answer for free safety? I don't know if the Jets are going to have a prototypical, free safety. I think that they're going to rotate between guys like Adams, between guys like Chuck Clark and Jordan Whitehead, and kind of just play mismatches there. They would rather have 3 hybrids like those guys are and kind of confuse you or not necessarily have these guys that are interchangeable pieces, right? If you ask me, I think right now, I think it's probably going to be Jordan Whitehead and Tony Adams are going to be, the guys that are listed as starting safeties with Chuck Clark and Jarek Bernard Converse, and Ashton Davis coming in and rotating through. But to answer the question, true free safety, I think you're looking at Tony Adams, and I'm okay with that. Listen, I think Tony Adams is young. They really like Tony Adams. They love his athleticism. Like, you got to remember, everyone was really high on Jason Pinnock as he transferred from cornerback to safety, right? And we exposed Pinnock to keep Tony Adams. So to me, that's very telling. It shows how much faith and trust and how much that they like Tony Adams as a ball player, that they're willing to expose and ultimately lose Jason Pinnock for him. But Bernard Converse is pretty much your Pinnock replacement. Same draft, same kind of mold, inside outside flexibility, good range. He comes downhill and is a very, very physical and good tackler.
Yeah. So hey, E Boogie, thank you so much for the super chat. Again, we appreciate those so much. You have no idea. It's very, very nice of you to do that. So appreciate it. James C, you gave me a wonderful super chat, a wonderful gift. We totally appreciate it. You didn't leave a comment, so if there is something you want to say, I'll look out for it. If that was an accident, if there's something you want highlighted, but thank you so much. I appreciate it. The super chat. I mean, it's very humbling. So it's hard to really show. Like, I just want you to know, it's you have all my gratitude. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for thinking of doing that. I appreciate it. So yeah, look, I agree with what you said. Everybody wants to have labels. They want that defined free safety. You just have to look at the matchups. And, Frankie from Flatbush actually made an appearance on Green Bean in the chat. And that's what he told me. He was like kind of talking to me in the chat. And he goes, Jeremy, it's not about starting free safety, this, that. It's about situation with Saleh. It's about playing strategic defense, moving guys around, depending on what we think they're going to do, confusing the offense, and just utilizing the talent that we have on the field. And that, just like the way we convert, safeties into linebackers and use linebackers that people would call undersized. It's like Saleh is not following conventional rules. He's creating and innovating his own defense, that's kind of what it feels like to me. He's not living by rules. He's living by, he's kind of making this, he's an innovator when it comes to this stuff. He's not just using a carbon copy of some defense from the past. He's actually doing things that we might see people copying in the future.
Yeah. Now, I also know that the Jets brought in a couple of undrafted free agent safeties as well. And a cornerback, a cornerback that supposedly was that they outbid everyone for in Khalif. I don't know how to say his last name. I think it's Halisi, from Western Kentucky, who is a guy who probably comes in, if he makes the team and is a specialty, he's the gunner, he's the replacement. He becomes a special teams ace, but he's a guy who played cornerback that could also transfer to safety. They signed Trey Dean from Florida, who's a guy that we all thought had a draftable grade on, a guy that we talked about a lot in the mocks. They brought him in. They also brought in another guy. I'm trying to find his name. I don't remember off the top of my head, from Texas Tech, who they gave a very, very large guaranteed deal to. So, they're bringing in bodies, in the safety room. But if I had to guess right now, Bernard Converse and Tony Adams are probably going to be duking it out for who gets that starting nod at that free safety. But I think Will Parks is still on the team. Like I said,
is he going to be fighting for a job? Will Parks.
I mean, listen, you're not going to keep 6 safeties, and I think it's safe to assume that Chuck Clark and Whitehead will be on the team, right? Yeah. I think it's safe to assume Tony Adams is going to be on the team. Yeah. So you might get one, maybe, depending on how the roster breaks down, maybe 2 more. I don't know if you can, it might be between Will Parks and Ashton Davis. Yeah. And if that's the case, I'd probably lean Ashton Davis just because what he, can bring to you on special teams. He's a really strong special team player.
Yeah.
and a good backup, and he can back up both. You know, he can back up both safety spots. So, I don't think you're going to keep all the safeties, but what do I know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's funny because we talked about Dre Dean a lot and the mocks and stuff like that, and
Yeah, he's more of your traditional, as you would quantify it, like box safety, and he is much more. He plays with a mean streak. He's very, very violent. I think he sometimes plays a little too out of control. Being a Florida fan, I watch them a lot. I much preferred Rashad Torrance, their other starting safety, over Trey Dean. But listen, neither of them got drafted, and they brought Trey Dean in, and they obviously saw something that they liked in him. So, that's it. And Randy's got another super chat here.
I saw that. I'm laughing. I'm thinking, I'm back.
Yeah.
What's your thought? Thank you again, Randy. Thanks for the super chat. What's your thoughts on the wide receiver room? I'm not very worried given our tight ends.
Yeah, I'll say this about the wide receivers. I think it's a good room. I'm surprised that we didn't use a draft pick. But they brought in two guys in particular, TJ Luther and Jason Brownlee, who both were very, very good prospects. Both had 4th, 5th round grades on them that didn't go drafted, and they brought them both in with high guarantees. So they're going to have a chance to make the roster. Both of them are very talented players. Both of them are, they're bigger. They seem to have in the Nathaniel Hackett era, they seem to have a type, right? Gone are the days of the diminutive Braxton Berrios types, and they want guys that, are a little bit bigger, have a little bit more size on them. Definitely guys that can affect the game, as blockers. That's something that you have to do in Nathaniel Hackett's scheme. Listen, I think do I think the room as constituted right now is complete? No. I wouldn't be shocked if there was, a move or two made before September, because we're going to it right now. Right now, you have Garrett Wilson, obviously, you have Corey Davis, you have Alan Lazard, and you have Mecole Hardman. They're your top 4, however you want to rate them 1 through 4. You would assume Mims is number 5, and then you still have somebody that's got to fill that Jeff Smith role. Could it be a trade? Maybe. Could it be one of these undrafted free agents that comes in and takes a spot? Maybe. So I think it's a good room. Do I think it's the best in the league? No, I don't. But I think there's I don't think it's a detriment or a negative. I don't think it's a bad room. I just think it's it's good. Aaron Rodgers is going to make all of them. He's going to elevate all their games. So.
Yeah, I agree. Makes people better. I kind of feel, my feeling on it is we might not have the number 2 receiver that people dream of, right? Like, and you could argue on who it is, if Corey Davis is healthy or is it Lazard or, but it's not always about that. Like, maybe we don't have, maybe there are teams that have a really good number 2 receiver, like that's very standout-ish with their number 1 receiver, but their number 1 receiver is not as good as our number 1 receiver, and their number 2 receiver, their number 3 receiver might be a big drop-off, whereas when you have a Lazard and a Corey Davis, you have 2 guys who are solid. And if you take some of the pressure or the workload off of Corey Davis, maybe it increases the chances he stays healthy. I think when Corey Davis is healthy, he's a good weapon. I really do. I think Lazard is comfortable with Aaron Rodgers. Garrett Wilson, the year he had with the 30-second quarterback play, now going to Aaron Rodgers, could possibly be the next Justin Jefferson. And then you have a guy like Hardman who brings that Berrios type of gadgetness and explosiveness.
Yeah,
and stretch the defense.
He's a field stretcher, absolutely.
Yeah,
and what you also got to remember, again, we're talking Nathaniel Hackett, who utilizes his running backs as wide receivers as well. So that, they stretch the field. His offense stretches the field horizontally more than vertically, right? So, think of the running backs getting out into the flank and running their little digs and stuff like that. Like, that's going to be a big staple in Nathaniel Hackett's offense. On top of that, he has a propensity to want to play a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of 2 tight end sets. So, I expect a big season. I'm not talking top 5. I expect a really big season from Tyler Conklin. I think he's really gonna surpass any of the kind of like mediocrity that he showed last year. I think that he's in for a big season. CJ Uzama, I'm kind of confused on. He really didn't affect the game all that much last year. I think he was much more of a personality and kind of a locker room guy than he was on the field, and maybe that changes. I don't know. So, yeah. So, listen, those are our draft picks. As a whole, I'm very excited. I think I think we put some good talent on the 53. It might not have been at the at the positions or in the order that we thought it was coming, but nonetheless, they definitely had a type, and they went with athletes and speed and length, and speed kills in the NFL.
Yeah, look, I'm excited about the direction this team is going. I have been for the last 2 to 3 years now. It's been exciting, and I trust them. I just do.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these players, and the more I learn about them, the more excited I'm getting. I'm like, we just keep adding talent, and like you said, athleticism, speed. Like, we're finally developing an identity. Like we're developing an identity. We're not just a bunch of, random players we're throwing together and using free agency and just randomly drafting people. It feels like there's a real plan, a real strategy, and it's like really coming together, and it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot to be excited about if you're a Jets fan, for sure.
Yeah, so. I think so. Look, I mean, how could we not be? When's the last time we went into a season where the NFL legitimately has us in the top 10 for odds to win the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
I mean, when? It's absolutely crazy. And it doesn't upset me when people say, oh, Buffalo, they'll come out and they'll piss Jet fans off, get so upset by it. Oh, this guy came out and said that he still thinks Buffalo's the favorite to win the division. Who cares?
No.
Who cares? That's not the question. The fact that it's an argument, the fact that it's a conversation, that's what we should be excited about. I mean, when's the last time we had a real argument that we're the best team in the division?
Yeah.
Just to be in the conversation.
Well, listen,
I mean, it's crazy.
This might not be the most liked take in the world, but I still think that Buffalo is the best in the division, but I think we've closed the gap. I think Aaron Rodgers alone closes that gap.
Oh, I mean, when you consider the fact that we beat them last year in one game, and that we came very close and were very competitive in the next game with that, if White doesn't break his ribs.
Yeah.
It's now with Aaron Rodgers, it's hard to go into those games ever thinking, oh, we can't win. It's like we certainly could go in thinking we could win.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. I'm curious to see the schedule that comes out. Got a couple weeks. And somebody's asking, Matt Smith's asking about the jersey. That's Wesley Walker. Signed Wesley Walker jersey.
Nice. I love it. You got it signed. That was my guy.
Yeah.
That was when I was a kid, man. That was like one of my guys. Freeman McNeil, Wesley Walker, Ken O'Brien, Al Toon, Mickey Schuler. Those were my guys.
Yeah.
Jets Paulie's in the chat. What's going on, Jets Paulie? Good to see you.
What's up, bud?
Hopefully he will be turned into a beast.
I think he will.
Yeah, I see Michael. Michael's out there. What's going on, Michael? Good to see you.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people. Hey, while we have a lot of people here, I just want to say, remember, we will be back. The Jets Cash Wacky Wednesday show will return. We were off last week because we had a big to-do on Buffalo's channel with the mock draft. But we'll be back Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern with our Wacky Wednesday show. We'll have our friend Italy Jet with us. And of course, Adam Y2K will be there.
Yeah.
And we'll be having a lot of fun, and we'll be getting wacky for sure. So,
Somebody's asking. I'm sipping on seltzer.
yeah, he's got 2 kids at home. He's not getting drunk on a Sunday night.
Three kids. 3 kids.
You got 3. I forgot you had 3.
Mm-hmm.
I love the thought when you talk about like your son, like one, like I'm thinking of like a little guy that looks just like you running around. It's hysterical.
So that's it, man. That's our draft class. You could like them, you could not. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I'm curious. I'm excited to see them on the field, man.
Yeah. Before we go, hey everybody, if you're in the chat, I know you've already subscribed. I set that up already. So please stay subscribed. I see someone saying thumbs up. Yeah, I call it the give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that if you give me the thumbs up. I'll be putting out a lot of videos with my brother soon. We're gonna do some breakdowns together, positional breakdowns before the season. So Lee's coming when Lee gets back from Europe. He's in Greece right now, but when he gets back, we'll be putting out videos. We'll be back on that Wednesday night show. So the channel will be very active again. So for those of you listening that's not in the chat, if you haven't subbed, please sub up so you can get some notifications and know when I'm on. And it's the best way to support the channel. It's super, super appreciated. I want to thank Dom C. Dom C, you made the show. It was an amazing night. It was because of you, because you brought all the content, all the brains. No. And I think a lot of people got a lot out of it. So thank you.
No, my pleasure, man. Anytime, you know that. Sunday nights have we've been able to carve out a lot of time together on Sunday nights leading into the draft. So we'll see what happens, as we get into the season. I know that you come when the season starts, you're tied in with post-game stuff and so on and so forth. But before then, I'm sure we'll chop it up together, man.
Yeah, definitely. Because, you got an open invitation on this channel anytime you want. Anytime you want to use this channel as a platform, it is yours. I'm honored to have you on, and you're a big part of this channel and a big part of whatever success this channel has had. You're a big part of. So I appreciate it,
man. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I will say, guys, I have the Project Prospect podcast is not dead. It's still going. New episode will be released on Green Bean Jets fan channel this week. I talk with Glenn Naughton, the editor of Jet Nation. We have a really good talk about some of these guys and the post. We had a good post draft talk. So, check it out if you can, man. Give the podcast a like, give it a listen. It's in audio and video form, so it's all good, man.
Yeah. So everybody in the chat, thanks. Everybody watching that's not in the chat, thanks. Everybody that watches this show, not live, but between now and any time in the future, thank you for the support. It's why we're here. There'd be no show, no channel without you. So everybody, thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. It was a great night. I hope everybody has a great week, and I look forward to seeing everybody again. Again, I'll be on Buffalo's channel on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see you guys then, and I will leave you with I'll leave you with some loudness. Take care, everybody.
Oh yeah! Go! Amazing! That's my boy! That's my boy!
He breaks away from a sack and completes the pass for first down.
Kittle just may have made the most amazing catch.
He fights for the first down and gets out of bounds too.
It's no good. Overtime. Oh, what a catch! How do you drop that? What are you, Jamal Adams? Touchdown!
This is a touchdown all the way!
He reached over the pylon. San Francisco beat Cincinnati.